Hi, everyone. It's Miriam Ortiz y Pino here with another edition of More Than Organized Monday. Today, we're going to be talking about how to systematize your stuff. We've been on this series of the steps to getting organized and to make sure you have all the pieces in place. I realized at one point, many of my clients are just always rearranging their stuff. They're not actually making progress. So I created this little mini series within the More Than Organized Monday to get you through all the steps of getting organized. So just to review where we've been already, we talked about why you want to have a vision for getting organized in the first place. Why are you bothering to put your stuff in some sort of orderly fashion? What's the purpose of doing that? So you have to spend a little bit of time exploring that. We went over the plan, how to figure out what you need to get organized, and how to address what kind of activities you're going to be doing in a given space so that you can start defining what belongs in various spaces. And then we talked about sorting. So you put like things together, and then how to eliminate the excess things with some great decision-making questions that we talked about last time. So that's where we're at. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to keep it. We talked about how to keep it, but the physical aspects of where and how and when to rotate things will happen today. The systematizing of your items. So systems are what really keep people organized. Not the pretty containers, it's the systems. It's the workflow of how you use your items. Before I get into all of that, though, let's talk. I just want to remind you that you can go to morethanorganized.net to get some other free resources. There's 5 ways to declutter fast, and there's the 1-minute mail solution kit, which is great for people that are struggling with paperwork or email information inundation. So both of those things are covered in the 1-minute mail solution kit, or you can opt for the 5 ways to declutter fast if other kinds of clutter are more of a problem for you. So just so you know, lots of free resources. Go a little more in depth on morethanorganized.net. All right, so back to this. We want to talk about how to actually keep your stuff. And I'm sorry, I'm using a little piece of paper today because I wanted to make sure I covered all of the various aspects of how to keep your stuff. Like I said, it's a workflow. So you buy your item, and what do you do with it? Where do you put it? How do you put it away? When do you put it away? How do you use it? And that kind of thing. So, if you're out of toilet paper and you put the toilet paper in the bathroom, that's great. But do you leave it on the floor, or do you put it in the paper toilet paper holder? Do you put it in a drawer? Do you put it under the sink? Do you put it in the linen closet? Those are the kinds of things that are how to keep it. So we want to learn some storage basics, like how big is it? How much room does it take up? How heavy is it? Things like toilet paper can go on a high shelf or a low shelf because they're very light, and so you can bend down and grab them fairly easily. It does take up quite a bit of room, so you might want to adjust your expectations of how much room you need for it instead of stuffing it in somewhere. Other things like a KitchenAid mixer in a kitchen are very heavy. You want to make sure you keep it on the counter or at waist height so it's easier to pick up and move around when you need to. But really, it's kind of a combination of the actual space, what the item is, how much it weighs, but you also want to factor in how often do you use it? What is the frequency you're going to need to gain access to it? And thinking how you use it more than how am I bringing it into the house. Sometimes people dump a lot of things in the entryway around their garage door or around their entryway because that's where it came in, and it's not quite known where it's going to be yet. But if you think through, where am I going to use it? Where am I going to keep it? Or things get kept in the pantry just because that's where mom used to keep it, but maybe you don't do that activity in the kitchen. You have your own home office to do that kind of activity. So think about how you're going to use it and when you're going to use it, first and foremost. I want to give you a little word of caution here too. This is where sometimes people think, I'll keep it near where I use it, and things that you use in multiple locations, you have multiple versions of. That's great if you have a really big house or you have to go up and down the stairs. But when your house is under, say, 1,500 square feet, it's more important to keep it in one place and know where that one place is. So if you use your scissors most of the time in the kitchen to open packaging, you don't necessarily need a to keep a pair in the living room as well. But if you have a really big house or you find you use things frequently enough, then you add another pair. So I have a pair of kitchen shears, I have a pair of shears in my desk pencil cup, and I have a pair in my closet because that's where the new clothes come in and I have to take tags off of things. So think about it first as I need one pair. Make sure I have one pair and know where that is all the time. And then add in others if you need them, and only if you find that you're using them frequently enough to justify that. Okay, and then your space. Of course, occasionally something is just giant. You can't keep it's the treadmill thing. Everybody buys a treadmill, they're gonna exercise, they're gonna do it while they watch TV, and then they realize it's in the middle of the living room and the kids can't play, so they move it to the bedroom, and then it's in the bedroom and it's huge and you don't think about it. So, what if instead of the treadmill, you went outside to walk where you didn't have to store anything? All you're storing is shoes and socks. Or what if you have an exercise room and the treadmill is in the exercise room? See, it starts making sense both in terms of space and where you use something. So those are some extreme examples of how to start thinking about things, but it's important to think about that end use of what you're keeping in the first place. Okay, so the other considerations at this point of the how to keep things tends to be, well, I'm going to get a pretty container to put it in, but I want to caution you to wait until we're a little bit farther along in the process. Of course, start thinking about what kind of container would I use, and the considerations for the containers are more along the lines of, is the stuff falling over? Rather than having a bunch of pens rolling around on my desk, I keep most of my pens in a pencil cup, one of each kind, and then I keep the overstock in the supply closet. But I don't like reaching all the way to the pencil cup, so I tend to always have a pen, an eraser, and a pencil right here to my left on the desk. But I've decided that's where it goes. But they don't actually have a container right now. They're just right here. But I made a decision, that's where they go, and that's where I'm keeping them. See how I'm going about that? Think about what the thing is, where you're going to keep it, and then the how you're going to keep it, okay? So we want to know how you're going to use it so you know where to keep it. Other considerations before you bring a container in are things like, is it falling over? Sauce packets in the kitchen sometimes need something to stand them up or hold them up. Sometimes paper in the office supply closet could use a few separations, but otherwise you can just stack it on a shelf. It's fine. Those kinds of things are helpful as well. You want to think about if it requires dust protection or some sort of humidity control or temperature control when you're storing things. And then you want to think even farther along than that. Does it require some sort of archival storage, as in memorabilia or a collection that's really important? Do you need to put it in acid-free tissue or box or an airtight container of some sort? So those are the considerations for how you're keeping things. But my favorite one that I find most of my clients forget to ask themselves is, am I willing to take care of it? I'm going to buy this new thing. Am I willing to take care of it for the rest of its life? Am I going to take the time to replace it when necessary because I'm now going to be using this kind of thing? Am I going to take the time to put the lid back on the container? Am I going to take the time to put it under the other thing or behind the thing that's in front of it when I do use it? And if it's not very often, probably. I have some stuff in my pantry that I have a really deep pantry, but it's only 2 shelves. So I have a front and a back area. And everything in the back can be seen and grabbed through the front area or by moving just one container from the front, and then I can reach the back. So I set it up so that I have both, the best of both worlds. I am using the full depth of the shelf, but it's for the things that I can see or reach easily, like canned goods or boxed goods. So it's easy to see what they are. They're not falling over, they're lined up, and it's easy to reach through and grab the one I need, okay? All right. Oh, the other thing about considering when you are going to keep something is, are you going to take the time to keep other things out of that area? Sometimes a thing requires a certain amount of space, and you have to give it that space to breathe. The KitchenAid is a great example of this. You need enough room to put both arms in to grab it, and place to put the accoutrements that come with it, the various paddles and spinning things and bowls and covers. And if you don't give yourself enough room to do that, if you're putting the KitchenAid and then everything's getting stuffed in it, and so it all falls over every time you try to grab it, that's not a great use of the space. You're filling a lot in there, but you can't use it very well. So think about that as well. What are you willing to keep the other things out of the way to be able to use the thing efficiently and effectively? Okay. So then again, we're going to consider a little bit of where to keep things, how you use it based on the space, the weight, the safety. You don't want too many things falling down on you. How often do you access it? Sometimes, there's a few containers that they're really pretty, but they have a handle of some sort that makes it seem like it'll be good to pull off a top shelf, but the handle itself is flimsy, or the structure of the container, once it's full of things, is not quite sturdy enough to hold up the stuff when you're pulling it off the shelf. So make sure you have enough room to pull and put your hand under things, or it's something you can grab with both hands and pull out, or reach under and access without having to sit all the way on the floor. There's those kinds of considerations you want to take into account as well when you're deciding where to keep things. All right. One of the things, though, that we did earlier on when we were thinking about why and planning what we need to get organized was defining some spaces within rooms. So if you knew your room is for sleeping and reading and getting ready and sex, you're not going to keep a bunch of toys in there. Well, maybe you're going to keep some toys in there, but maybe you're not going to keep kids' toys in there. And maybe you're not going to keep the video game system in there because you don't have the TV in there anyway. Or maybe you're not going to keep your paperwork or your old tax papers in the bedroom because it has nothing to do with those things. Maybe your kitchen is for cooking, storing, preparing, and cleaning your food. So why would you keep all your paperwork in the kitchen? Why would you keep the extra toilet paper in the kitchen? Why not in the bathroom or in a central supply area? See how it starts allowing you to know where things go. Why would you keep your clothes in your child's room if your child is what you keep in the child's room along with their toys, their clothes, their accoutrements? See where I'm going with that? Your activities have very little to do with the child in the child's room in terms of your clothing, your formal wear, your overcoats. Get that stuff out of your kids' room already. Okay. So that's where having that list ahead of time can help us figure out where things go. I like to actually get all the things that are going to go into the room, and then start fine-tuning the containers and where this stuff is going to be stored, because that way you see the whole picture of what's happening in that room. And it's easier to decide what you can let go of or what may no longer be serving you. Or if you're trying to do too many things in that room, get the treadmill out of the bedroom. Okay. Then the last part is you want to figure out your rotation system. So how are you going to rotate the stuff? We talked about the toilet paper, but where in the process are you going to put the toilet paper on the list to buy again? So that's the other thing that happens. A lot of times we figure out where to keep it, but not how to replace it, and how that flow of replacement comes into play when everything we have is rotatable. Okay, when are you going to throw out the used up pen, the one that doesn't write anymore? I can't tell you how many times I see people put the used up pen that doesn't write back in the pencil jar. What if you put it back in the trash because it doesn't write? Make that decision right now. When something doesn't work, or it's out, or you realize it's old and past its date, get rid of it. Then figure out your listing system. Am I going to add it to a shopping list now? Or does it go on the shopping list when I reevaluate my wardrobe? You know, I ripped that t-shirt. Am I going to buy a new one now? Or wait till the end of the season when I'm doing my wardrobe evaluation for the next season? However you decide to do those kinds of rotations, honor it and get in the habit of using it. On my phone, I have a notes page on my iPhone. One is for groceries and one is for Walgreens or the drugstore. And so I just add whatever I need. I'm out of vitamins, it goes on the Walgreens list. I'm out of milk, it goes on the grocery list, and it's always with me. But I have that plan in place. When I use the last one, I add it to the list, and I go to the store regularly enough that I'm going to pick it up within a couple days. If it's an emergency, you waited too long to put it on the list, and you need to figure out a better rotation plan. You know, whenever I I'm a little bit afraid of running out of some things, and so it goes on the list when I open the last one. That way there's time for using up the ketchup, using up the shampoo, using up the cleanser or the laundry detergent. And there's always one backup, and the new backup will be there within 2 or 3 days when I open one. So you can figure out your level of comfort of how many you need. Maybe for your family of 5, you need it to be 5. When I'm down to 5 cans of soup, I must put it on the list so I get 5 cans of soup within the next few days. Something like that. But you get to decide what that plan is, and you need to use it. And along those lines, and in terms of keeping your stuff well, as you are using it up from the defined place you're keeping that stuff, make sure other things don't enter in that spot. So when you're using up the chicken soup, don't move the beans over there because you bought extra beans. Use up, or that space is still going to be used by the new soup that's coming in. So just make sure you honor the space you created for the things you use regularly, and anything new that comes in has to work into the system, either in a new space or replacing something you used to use for that same task. But it's a rotation system, and it's a whole workflow. We buy things to use to make our lives easier or to nourish ourselves, and then it goes out. It doesn't mean we keep it forever. Some things are a little more heirloom quality, but most things in our life rotate. And even if we think we're going to keep it forever, something can happen. We may change our mind that we no longer like knitting, that we no longer like quilting, that we no longer like scrapbooking, or we change jobs, or we have kids, or something happens and one of those hobbies that was so important, we're going to keep it forever, no longer a thing. So keep that in mind. It's a rotating system, all of it. Okay. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Sorry. So that's it. That's how to systematize. So next time I'm going to talk more specifically about the actual containers, the beautifying the things you're keeping. I like to think of it as the last step to make everything pretty. So we have now created the structure, and now we're going to make it pretty next week. Thanks for tuning in again. I will see you again next week.